Hello students, welcome to the session Definition, Scope and Nature of Economics. In this session, we are going to discuss various approaches to economics, various ways and various contexts in which it can be defined, the nature of economics, its classification, various types of economic systems, various methods which can be applied to study economics, etc. During the session, we are also going to take a few examples to access our understanding of this topic, and in the end of the session, we are also going to discuss few basic terms which we are going to use frequently in this session as well as the other forthcoming sessions. So let's begin. In the first part of this session, let us see what are the various ways and various contexts in which economics can be defined. British economist Lionel Robbins gave the definition of economics, according to which economics is the science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. Another economist, Adam Smith, gave the definition that economics is the science of wealth. Another definition of economics says that economics is the study of how society manages its scarce resources. Economics can also be defined as a social science concerned chiefly with the way the societies choose to employ its limited resources, which have alternative uses to produce goods and services for present and future consumption. Economics can also be defined as an art of analyzing, recording, and interpreting and communicating the results of economic transactions. So as we have seen that there are many ways of defining economics, but the easiest way to put economics is by the way in which money influences or is organized within an area of business in our society today. So we can define economics as the study of what constitutes rational human behavior in the endeavor to fulfill needs and wants. So on the basis of this definition, we can take an example that as an individual, you have to face the problem of having only limited resources with which to fulfill your wants and needs. As a result, you must make certain choices with your money so that as much as possible you can fulfill your requirements. So probably you want to spend part of your limited income on house rent and electricity or even food, and then you might use the rest to go to a movie or buy a new pair of jeans. So we can see in this example that how with limited amount of money, first we have to fulfill our most essential requirements, and then we have to allocate the rest of the part to fulfill our other needs or requirements. Now let's have a look at the various ways economics as a subject is approached. The first approach to economics that we are going to discuss is economics as the science of wealth. Well-known economist Adam Smith defined economics as the science of wealth. He offered another definition according to which economics is the science relating to the laws of production, distribution, and exchange. Another well-known economist, John Stuart Mill, defined economics as the practical science of production and distribution of wealth. Now, since we are approaching economics as the science of wealth, we must first define wealth. Economists define wealth as one that has value in use and value in exchange. Wealth was defined as the specialization of labor which allowed a nation to produce more with its supply of labor and resources. Various definitions of economics in terms of wealth emphasize production and consumption. They do not deal with the economic activities of those who are not significantly involved in these two processes. For example, retired people or beggars. For economists of this period, non-productive activity is a cost on the society. This interpretation of economics gave it a narrow focus that was rejected by many as placing wealth in the forefront and man in the background. Now let's have a look at some of the important features of definitions of economics based on the concept that economics is a science of wealth. Economics was considered as a science as per these definitions. Creation of wealth was considered very essential economic activity, and production and consumption were very important aspects of economics. As we have mentioned earlier as well, definitions of economics in terms of wealth faced a lot of criticism as well. It was criticized as this definition taught selfishness and love for money. It was considered as a science of bread and butter. Another way of defining economics is in terms of welfare. Alfred Marshall, in his book Principles of Economics, which was published in 1890, wrote that political economy or economics is a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. It examines the part of the individual and social action which is most closely connected with the attainment and with the use of material requisites of well-being. Like the definitions in terms of wealth, the definition in terms of welfare was also criticized. It was criticized as being too narrowly materialistic. It ignores, for example, the non-material aspects of these services, for example, as that of a dancer, a theory of wages which ignored all those sums paid for immaterial services was incomplete. Secondly, welfare could not be quantitatively measured because the marginal significance of money differs from rich to the poor. For example, 100 rupees is relatively more important to the well-being of a poor person than to that of a wealthy person. Next point. Moreover, the activities of production and distribution of goods such as alcohol and tobacco may not be conducive to human welfare, but these scarce goods do satisfy human wants. Now, Marxist economics still focuses on a welfare definition. In addition, several critiques of mainstream economics begin from the argument that current economic theory does not adequately measure welfare, but only monetize the activity. Now let's have a look at some of the important features of the definition based on welfare. As per the definition of economics based on welfare, economics is the study of wealth and mankind. It considered mankind as an important aspect, unlike those definitions which were based on wealth. Non-materialistic aspect was not given equal importance in this definition. Some economists also define economics in terms of scarcity. For them, the basic definition of economics is the choice under scarcity. It is the study of how limited resources are allocated to satisfy unlimited human wants. The economists like to study how scarcity of resources and the differences in the distribution of these resources affect decisions. For example, natural resources are scarce. Crude oil, for example. A lot of people need it, but there is a limited amount of it to be used. So we can see a market developing for it. In addition, there are things like land, and even labor, which are scarce. The definition of economics in terms of scarcity allowed a potentially broader field of study, but it too has its critics. It is most amenable to those who consider economics a pure science, but others object that it reduces economics merely to a valuation theory. It ignores how values are fixed, prices are determined, and national income is generated. It also ignores unemployment and other problems arising due to abundance. This definition cannot apply to such Keynesian concepts such as cyclic instability, full employment, and economic growth. The focus on scarcity continues to dominate neoclassical economics, which in turn predominates in most academic economic departments. It has been criticized in recent years for a variety of quarters, including institutional economics and evolutionary economics. Scarcity of means was considered as the main reason for economic problem, but it was nullified in the Great Depression of 1930. To assess our understanding of the concepts that we have gone through in this session, let's take a question. So the question is, what implication does resource scarcity have for the satisfaction of wants? There are four options. The first choice says, not all wants can be satisfied. Second choice, we will never be faced with the need to make decisions. Third option, we must develop ways to decrease our individual wants. And the last option says, the discovery of new natural resource is necessary to increase our liability to satisfy. So let's guess the correct option. Any guesses? The answer is option 1, that is, not all wants can be satisfied. As we have already discussed the definitions and approach to economics, now let's proceed to the next section of our session, in which we are going to discuss the nature of economics. So if we discuss economics in terms of positive law, a positive statement is a statement about what it is and contains no indication of approval or disapproval. Notice that a positive statement can be wrong. For example, the moon is made of green cheese is incorrect, but it is a positive statement because it is a statement about what exists, that is the moon. Similarly, positive law of economics uses economic analysis to predict the effects of various legal rules. So, for example, a positive economic analysis of tort law. A tort in common law jurisdictions is a civil wrong which unfairly causes someone else to suffer loss or harm resulting in legal liability. So it is the area of law that covers the majority of all civil lawsuits. So as we were saying, a positive economic analysis of tort law would predict the effects of a strict liability rule as opposed to the effects of a negligence rule. So positive law and economics has also at times purported to explain the development of legal rules. For example, the common law of torts in terms of their economic efficiency. We can also discuss economics in context of normative law. A normative statement expresses a judgment about whether a situation is desirable or undesirable. For example, the world would be a better place if the moon were made of green cheese. It is a normative statement because it expresses a judgment about what ought to be. Please notice that there is no way of disproving this statement. If you disagree with it, you have no sure way of convincing someone who believes this statement that he or she is wrong. So normative law and economics goes one step further and makes policy recommendations based on the economic consequences of various policies. The key concept for normative economic analysis is efficiency. The weakest concept of efficiency used by law and economics scholars is Pareto efficiency. A legal rule is Pareto efficient if it could not be changed so as to make one person better off without making another person worse off. By weak, economists mean that Pareto efficiency makes very few normative assumptions, not that it is supposed by or supported by weak arguments. A stronger conception of efficiency is Kaldor-Hicks efficiency. A legal rule is Kaldor-Hicks efficient if it could be made Pareto efficient by a side payment. Economics seem to be particularly susceptible to a debate on whether it is to be classified as science or as an art. This, despite far too many unpredictable variables influencing the occurrence of economic phenomena and management decisions. In favor of the stand that economics is science, most economists see their discipline as scientific. Economic theory makes statements about how facts fit together, and there are constantly new sets of facts arising that allow one to test the theory to see whether the facts are as theory predicts. However, this process is more difficult for economists than it is for most physical scientists. Now coming to arts, in general, what markedly distinguishes it from science is the role of the artist or the performer, be it music or dance or painting or oratory, both religious as well as secular, how preponderant becomes the role of the individual, that is the artist or the performer or the actor. Similarly, the role of economist is also very important in how economics and its various aspects are defined. So here comes one more question to test whether we have grasped what we have discussed in this session or not. The question is, who expressed the view that economics is neutral between and we have four options for that, one of which is correct. The first one is Robbins, second Marshall, third Pigou, and fourth Adam Smith. The correct answer is the first option, that is Robbins. So after discussing definition, nature and approach to economics, let's move on to the next section, that is the classification of economics. Economics can be classified on the basis of scope of study into two types. The first one is macroeconomics and the second is microeconomics. So let's begin with the first type, that is macroeconomics. Macroeconomics may be defined as that branch of economic analysis which studies the behavior of not one particular unit but of all the units combined together. So macroeconomics is the study of aggregates. It is the study of the economic system as a whole. Therefore, total production, total consumption, total savings, total investment are the terms that we often come across while studying macroeconomics. Various fields that are covered by macroeconomics are theory of income, output, and employment with its constituents, namely the theory of consumption function, the theory of investment function, and the theory of business cycles or economic fluctuations. It also covers the theory of prices with its constituents of the theories of inflation, deflation, and reflation. Another area is the theory of economic growth, which deals with the long-run growth of income, output, and employment. And another field that is covered by macroeconomics is the macro theory of distribution, dealing with the relative shares of wages and profits in the total national income. If we look at the merits of studying macroeconomics, we'll find that the study of macroeconomics is indispensable as it is the main agent for formulation and successive execution of the government economic policies. It is also indispensable for the formulation of microeconomic models. Now, as per the classification, the second type in which economics can be classified is microeconomics. Microeconomics may be defined as that branch of economic analysis which studies the economic behavior of the individual unit, maybe a person, a particular household, or a particular firm. It is a study of one particular unit rather than all the units combined together. In microeconomics, we study the various units of the economy, how they function, and how they reach the equilibrium. So if we have a look at the fields which are covered by microeconomics, we'll find that they are the theory of product pricing with its constituents, namely the theory of consumer behavior and the theory of production and costs. Another field is the theory of factor pricing and then the theory of economic welfare. So here comes another question to test your grasping of the subject. It's a multiple choice question with 4 options, out of which only one is correct. So the question says, which of the following is not a microeconomic subject matter? The choices are: first, the price of mangoes; second, the cost of producing a fire truck for the Department of Delhi, India; third, the quantity of mangoes produced for the mango market; and fourth, the national economy's annual rate of growth. Any guesses? Let me reveal the correct answer. The correct option is answer 4, that is the national economy's annual rate of growth. After discussing definition, nature, approaches, and classification of economics, let's proceed to the next section in this session, that is the types of economic systems. Economic system consists of various individuals and institutions like banking institutions, educational institutions, economic institutions, etc. The most general economic systems are traditional economy, capitalist economy, socialist economy, and mixed economy. Now let's discuss each type of economic system one by one and see how they are different from each other. So the first type of economic system that we are going to discuss is the traditional economy. In traditional economy, the basic problems of economy are solved by traditions, and custom rules every aspect of the behavior. It is a subsistence economy, that is, an economic system which is wholly reliant on the self-provisioning of the community. This economy produces exactly to its consumption requirements. There is not much of sales as there is only small-scale production. The same product will be produced by every generation. The production techniques are also traditional. The second type of economic system is the capitalist economy. We can define a capitalist economy as an economic system in which the production and distribution of commodities take place through the mechanism of free markets. Hence, it is also known as the market economy or the free trade economy. If we look at the important features of the capitalist economy, then we will find that each individual, be it a producer, consumer, or resource owner, has considerable economic freedom. An individual has the freedom to buy and sell any number of goods and services and to choose any occupation. Thus, a market economy has no central coordinator guiding its operations. In capitalist economy, people enjoy certain privileges. The first one of such privileges is the right to private property. Individuals have the right to buy and own property. There is no limit and they can own any amount of property. They also have the legal rights to use their property in any way that pleases them. Another privilege in capitalist economy is the profit motive. Profit is the only motive for the functioning of capitalism. Production decisions involving high risks are taken by individuals only to earn large profits. Hence, profit motive is the basic force that drives the capitalist economy. The third is the freedom of choice. The question what to produce will be determined by the producers. They have the freedom to decide. The fourth one is the market forces. Market forces like demand, supply, and price are the signals to direct the system. Most of the economic activities are centered on price mechanism. Production, consumption, and distribution questions are expected to be solved by market forces. Now let's have a look at the merits of capitalist economy. The first merit of capitalist economy is the increase in productivity. In a capitalist economy, every farmer, trader, or industrialist can hold property and use it in any way he likes. He increases the productivity to meet his own self-interest. This, in turn, leads to increase in income, saving, as well as investment. The second merit of capitalist economy is the flexibility in the system. The shortages and surpluses in the economy are generally adjusted by the forces of demand and supply. Thus, it operates automatically through the price mechanism. The third merit of capitalist economy is the non-interference of state. The state has a minimum role to play. There is no conflict between the individual interest and the society. The economic institutions function automatically, preventing the interference of the government. But capitalist economy has certain demerits as well. The first disadvantage of capitalist economy is the inequality. Capitalism creates extreme inequalities in income and wealth. Also, capitalist economy leads to monopoly. Inequality leads to monopoly. Mega corporate units replace smaller units of production. Firms combine to form cartels, trusts, and in this process bring about reduction in number of firms engaged in production. They ultimately emerge as multinational corporations or transnational corporations. They often hike prices against the welfare of consumers. The third disadvantage is depression. There is overproduction of goods due to heavy competition. The next type of economic system that we are going to discuss is the socialist economy. In a socialist economy, the means of production are owned and operated by the state. All the economic decisions regarding production and distribution are taken by the central planning authority. Hence, the socialist economy is also known as planned economy or command economy. The government plays an active role in this type of economic system. Social welfare is given a lot of importance, hence equal opportunity is given to all sections in the economy. Some of the most successful socialist economies are China, Cuba, Vietnam, and North Korea. Now let's have a look at some of the basic features of socialist economy. Social welfare motive. In socialist economy, social or collective welfare will be the primary motive of all the economic activities. Second is limited right to private property. The right to private property is limited, so all the properties of the country will be owned by the state. The third interesting feature of socialist economy is no market forces. In a centralized planned system of development, market forces have only a limited role to play. Production, commodity, and factor prices, consumption, and distribution will be governed by development planning with welfare motive. Now let's have a look at some of the merits of socialist economy. The first one is the efficient use of resources. The resources are utilized efficiently to produce socially useful goods without taking the profit margin into account. Production is increased by avoiding waste of competition. Second advantage of this type of economic system is the economic stability. Economy is free from business fluctuations. Government plans well and everything is well coordinated to avoid overproduction or unemployment. There is stability because the production and consumption of goods and services are well regulated. The third merit of this type of system is the maximization of social welfare. All citizens work for the welfare of the state. Everybody receives his or her remuneration. The state concentrates on the production of basic necessaries instead of luxury goods. The state provides free education, cheap and congenial housing, public health amenities, and social security for the people. Like other economic systems, this economic system also has certain disadvantages. So the first demerit of socialist economy is bureaucratic expansion. A socialist economy is operated under a centralized command and control system. It does not give any initiative for the people to work hard. Second demerit is the lack of freedom. There is no freedom of occupation. Allocation of factors of production is not done rationally. Jobs are provided by the state only, and the place of work is also provided by the state. The consumer's choice are also very limited in this type of economic system. The third demerit is the absence of competition, which ultimately makes the system inefficient. So, other than socialist and capitalist economic systems, the next type of economic system that we are going to discuss is known as mixed economy. In a mixed economy, both public and private institutions exercise economic control. The public sector functions as a socialist economy and the private sector as a free enterprise economy. All decisions regarding what, how, and for whom to produce are taken by the state. The private sector produces and distributes goods and services. It manufactures consumer and capital goods in the interest of public welfare. A mixed economy possesses the freedom to hold private property, to earn profit, to consume, produce, and distribute, and to have any occupation. But if these freedoms affect public welfare adversely, they are regulated and controlled by the state. Now let's have a look at some of the main features of this type of economic system. The first feature of mixed economy that distinguishes it from other type of economic systems is the coexistence of public and private sectors. In a mixed economy, both the public and the private sector initiatives will be there. Second is the consolidation of merits of capitalism and socialism. As we have already discussed, both capitalism and socialism have merits as well as demerits. Mixed economy is expected to retain only the merits of the two systems. For instance, the government is expected to allow private investment, but the government also controls monopolies. The third important feature of mixed economy is planning. Economic planning is another important feature of the mixed economy. Planning will direct the relative roles of public and private sectors and their respective jurisdictions. Now let's have a look at the advantages and disadvantages of mixed economic system. The first merit of mixed economy is the efficient resource utilization. The resources are utilized efficiently as good features of both capitalism and socialism coexist. The second merit of mixed economy is administered prices. The prices are not fixed always by forces of demand and supply. In the case of goods which are scarce, the prices are administered by the government and such goods are also rationed. The third merit of mixed economic system is social welfare. In mixed economy, planning is centralized and there is overall welfare. Just like the other economic systems like capitalist economy and socialist economy, even mixed economy has certain disadvantages. The first demerit of mixed economy is the lack of coordination. The coordination between the public and private sectors is pretty poor in mixed economy. The second demerit is red tapeism and delay by public sector. There is every chance that the public sector works inefficiently. So after going through the definition, nature, approach of economy and various type of economic systems, now let's move to the next section in this session, that is the methods of study. There are basically two methods of economic study. The first one is known as the deductive method and the second one is known as inductive method. Let us first discuss the deductive method of study. The deductive method is also known as analytical, abstract, or prior method. The deductive method consists in deriving conclusions from general truths. It takes a few general principles and applies them to draw conclusions. For instance, if we accept the general proposition that man is entirely motivated by self-interest and John is a man, therefore, the inference will be drawn that John is motivated by self-interest. In applying the deductive method of economic analysis, we proceed from general to particular. Let's take an example of deductive method of study. Suppose we have an axiom that two distinct lines in a plane are either parallel or intersecting, which is a general perception. Based on this axiom, the corresponding theorem is two distinct lines in a plane cannot have more than one point in common, which is a specific approach to that statement. Thus, this is an example of deductive method of study. Now let's go through the various steps which are followed in deductive method of study. First of all, selecting the problem for analysis. In the process of deriving economic generalizations, the analyst must have a clear and precise idea of the problem to be inquired into. The second step is defining the terms. The next step in this direction is to define clearly the technical terms to be used in economic analysis. Further, the assumptions made for a theory should also be precise. The third step is formulating hypotheses through logical reasoning. The third step in deriving generalizations is deducing hypotheses from the assumptions taken. The next step is testing and verification of hypotheses. Before establishing laws or generalizations, the hypothesis should be verified through direct observations of events in the real world and through statistical methods. There is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded of a good is a well-established generalization example. Now let's have a look at some of the advantages of deductive method of study. First of all, this method is near to reality. It is less time consuming and less expensive. The second advantage of deductive method is that the use of mathematical techniques in deducing theories of economics brings exactness and clarity in economic analysis. Thirdly, there being limited scope of experimentation in economics, the deductive method of study helps in deriving economic theories. And last but not the least advantage, the method is simple because it is analytical in nature. Other than deductive method, the other method which is often adopted for economic study is the inductive method. It is also known as the empirical method and was adopted by the historical school of economists. It involves the process of reasoning from particular facts to general principle. This method derives economic generalizations on the basis of experimentations, observations, and statistical methods. In this method, data is collected about a certain economic phenomenon, These are systematically arranged and the general conclusions are drawn from them. Let's have a look at one of the examples of inductive method of study. We observe that there are 200 persons in an economic market. We find that nearly 195 people buy from the cheapest shops. Out of the 5 remaining, 4 persons buy local products even at higher rate just to patronize their own products, while the 5th one is a fool. So from this observation, we can easily draw conclusions that people like to buy from a cheaper shop unless they are guided by patriotism or they are devoid of common sense. Now let's have a look at the steps which are followed in inductive method of study. The first step is selecting the problem for analysis. Secondly, collection, classification and analysis of data by using appropriate statistical tool. Third step, finding out the reasons for the relationship established through statistical analysis and to set rules for the verification of the principles. Just like deductive method, inductive method also has certain advantages and disadvantages. So first of all, let's go through the advantages of inductive method. The first advantage is the statistical induction leads to precise, exact and measurable conclusion. Second advantage, it underlines the importance of relativity of economic laws. And third, it shows that generalizations are valid under certain conditions. Now let's go through the limitations as well. First of all, if conclusions are drawn from insufficient data, the generalizations obtained may often be faulty. Secondly, the collection of data itself is not an easy task. The sources and methods employed in the collection of data may differ from investigator to investigator. Thirdly, the results therefore may differ even with the same problem. The inductive method is often found to be time-consuming and expensive. Now let's begin with the last section of this session. In this section, we are going to discuss certain terms related to production and certain concepts as well, which we are going to use frequently in our coming sessions. So our first topic is factors of production. There are 3 types of factors of production: land, labor, and capital. The term land, according to the dictionary, means the surface of the ground. In economics, however, it is used in a wider sense to signify all the gifts of nature, surface of ground being one of them. Labor. There are usually 2 types of labor: physical labor, which we can simply say is the physical work done, and mental labor. Simply speaking, it's the mental work done. The third factor is capital. All machinery, plants, buildings, etc. used for production is what done in terms of money is called capital. Let's take an example just to check how much we have grasped in this session. So another question comes for you. An economy achieves production efficiency when there are 4 choices, out of which one is correct. The first choice says resources are employed in their most highly valued uses. Second option, the best resources are employed. Third option, the total number of goods produced is greatest. And fourth is goods and services are produced at least cost and no resource is wasted. Any guesses for the correct option? The correct answer is choice 4, which says goods and services are produced at least cost and no resources wasted. Now let's move on to our next topic, production possibility curve. But before understanding production possibility curve, we must have an understanding of what is production possibility and what is production possibility schedule. Like the individuals, a society as a whole has limited resources. It has to decide what to produce with the limited resource. It has to make choice about the quantity of different commodities. Choice emanates from scarcity. Thus, our choice is always constrained or limited by scarcity of our resources. Suppose we have enough resources to produce all that we want. So all such choices can be made with the help of production possibility curve. Now the production possibility curve separates outcomes that are possible for the society to produce from those which cannot be produced subject to the available resources. Let us consider an economy with, say, only so many people, so many industries, so much of electricity and natural resources in deciding what shall be produced and how these resources are to be allocated among thousands of different possible commodities. How many industries are to be produced to produce steel, how much electricity is to be provided for agriculture and how much for industries, whether to provide free electricity to the farmers or not. These problems are pretty complicated. Therefore, to simplify, let's take an example and let us assume there are only two goods to be produced with the help of the available resources: apples and oranges. Now in this schedule, A and E are possibilities where the economy either produces 100% of apples or 100% of oranges alone. But the production possibility assumes the production of two goods in different combinations. Possibilities A, B, C, D and E are such that the economy produces 4 units of apples and 0 units of oranges in possibility A. The same resources can be utilized in such a way that 3 units of apples and 2 units of oranges are produced in possibility B. 2 units of apples and 4 units of oranges in possibility C with the help of same resources, and 1 unit of apple and 6 units of oranges in possibility D. Similarly, the same resources can be utilized to produce 0 unit of apples and 8 units of oranges in possibility E. The production possibility curve that we are going to draw in the next slide is also known as transformation curve or production possibility frontier. This curve shows the rate of transformation of one product into the other when the economy moves from one possibility point to another. All possible combinations lying on the production possibility curve show the combinations of the two goods that can be produced by the existing resources. Any combination lying inside the production curve indicates that resources are not being fully employed in the best known way. Similarly, any point outside the production possibility frontier implies that the economy does not have adequate resources to produce this combination. But a shift outside the production possibility frontier certainly indicates economic development. This is possible by technological advancement and increase in supply of factors of production. Now, if we look at this production possibility curve, we'll see that apples are marked on this axis, that is the y-axis, and oranges on the x-axis. And these are the various points for different possibilities, which are actually combinations, different combinations of apples and oranges produced at different possibilities using the same available resources. Thus, we see that if we are willing to have more of oranges, we should be willing to sacrifice more of apples. For instance, to reach possibility C from B, the economy produces 2 units more of oranges by sacrificing 1 unit of apples. A full employment economy must always be producing one good by giving up something of another. This assumes, of course, that at least some resources can be transferred from one good to another. Such choice of one particular alternative involves opportunity cost of foregoing the other. Hence, The decisions of the society will be based on the comparison of costs and benefits of each alternative. In doing so, both the monetary and social cost and benefit should be the basis of any choice. Thus, the one that gives the maximum benefit at minimum cost to the whole society should be the best choice. We can picture the production possibility schedule by drawing a smooth curve as we have seen in this slide. Units of oranges are measured horizontally and apples on vertical axis. This can be applied for other type of products as well. The curve A and E depict the various possible combinations of the two goods A, B, C, D, E. Thus, a list of all possible combinations of apples and oranges make up the production possibilities as depicted in this production possibility curve. So here we come to the end of this session. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.